We're live. Hi, Sugat. Can you hear me
Hi
okay?
Nancy, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Well, today we're here to talk all about the take home assignments that PMs oftentimes need to prepare for in PM interviews. Before we dive deep into this topic, I first want to talk about Sugat's YouTube channel because it is so helpful. I've watched maybe 10 of your videos and I really like them. And they're also really high quality. I could tell that you put in a lot of effort in creating your YouTube videos. Tell us more about your motivation and your vision for your YouTube channel.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nancy, first of all, inviting me to your channel and providing me this platform to talk to a lot of people and product aspirants. So, back in 2020, when I was preparing for my interviews with PayPal, I wanted to understand how does the normal interview process look like, and what are the kind of questions being asked. There are a lot of ton of resources for a software developers, but none actually existed for product managers. So I started reaching out to people on LinkedIn, connecting with them, asking about the interview process. But I didn't receive much of the responses, and that was a little bit disheartening. So what happened that I was able to crack the interview, and I thought that hey, I faced a problem of not getting the responses or not able to share the insights about the interview process. Why don't I just create a video summarizing
Mhm.
my end-to-end interview experience along with the questions being asked? So initially, there was no intention of creating a YouTube channel. It was just a video which I wanted to share. Luckily, a lot of audiences and people really enjoyed it. And over this period of time, a lot of people started reaching me out that, hey, because of your video, I was able to crack the PayPal interview. And I'm in PayPal right now. So that's how the story and it started motivating me. And I thought that why don't we have interview experience of other companies? And yeah, but I thought that I can't force someone to share their experience, but why can't I start interviewing them in a kind of a podcast style and start recording them? And that's how it gradually started. It's
Wow.
been 3 years right now. Over the years, slowly and steadily growing, and have over around 7K subscriber as of now.
It is so hard to be a creator. My
Yep.
personal journey with YouTube was I was I was inspired to create a collection of videos to document my baby's life. She's six
Wow.
now, so that inspiration came more than 7 years ago, and it came because as a new mom, first time mom, I had no idea what to expect in the pregnancy and also in the delivery. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos just to learn and prepare for the big delivery day. And I was inspired by other people's um, kind of like the documentation of that special day, and I wanted to do the same thing. And I wanted to just gift a bunch of videos to my daughter when she's old enough to appreciate it.
Yep.
So then I decided, okay, I'm going to document my pregnancy. And then I really, really want to capture the moment in the delivery room um, where the mom, kind of hates everyone and hates herself, hates the world, hates life because there's so much pain. And as soon as the baby comes, then that emotion just flips completely to, oh my gosh, there's so much love. I love everyone. I really, really wanted to capture the drastic, um, just like emotional spin in that moment. So I created a birthing video, and that one video went viral on my channel, and
Wow.
I think it's at 12 million views or something like that. And that was
Wow.
also when my channel just like grew and I had a lot of subscribers as a result of that one video. And then afterwards, I started to make monthly or every other month baby updates after that. But it was so much work. And
Yep. Yep.
like lighting, like the editing, and you try to make it high quality is so much. And I couldn't do anymore. So I created videos for the first year of my baby's life. And I, up until the very last month, so basically month 12, I created a video. And I just could not get myself to edit the very last video. Also because I look like crap in that video, like new mom, like the crazy mom look. And this was even after I tried to like touch up a little bit because okay, I'm gonna film. But afterwards, during the editing, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot like put this up on the internet. So I never got around to editing the very last video. And that was how much work it was. And I just,
Yep.
and basically my journey was pregnancy and the first year. So it's maybe like a year and a half YouTube journey. And I had to stop. Like I cannot underestimate and just call out how much work it is to keep your channel alive for years.
Yes.
Like I completely understand
Absolutely.
like the amount of effort and the time. So thank you so much for putting in your time to benefit and to help the PM community at large. So yeah, just wanted to highlight that and recognize you.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right, so here's a QR code for folks who are interested in following Sugat's really high quality PM channel. So today, let's talk about best ways and best practices to prepare for these take home assignments as part of PM interviews. Tell us more about what you have learned over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Nancy. So, a lot of things to talk about. I'm just wanted to start sharing my screen and share you some over the view things that, what does a take home assignment look like? What are the different parameters or factors? What are the different types of take home assignment? What are companies that send take home assignments? So, there are a lot of things to talk about. But what I've seen in general over the last few years, the take home assignments has actually taken the front set of shortlisting candidates, be it startups or enterprises. All the companies are sending the take home assignments. Number one, because it helps to identify the right set of candidates. Number two, that it get easy for them to shortlist the candidates, and number three, they can also learn about the candidates, how can they work without pressure of interviews. So those
Mhm.
were my top three insights that I have gained so far, and I'm happy to talk more about deep diving into each one of them.
Also, before you do that, we have people in the audience saying hi.
Oh, hi Siddharth and Shobit.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Um, yeah, cool, cool. It's always fun, super fun to be able to interact with people who are watching. So keep the
Yep.
comments coming. All right. So with that background, I think you have some examples you could walk us through.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna share my screen and quickly present some content. Let me know,
Let,
folks, if you can see the screen.
let me pull it up. There we go.
Uh, cool. So first of all, right, let's talk about the take-home case studies, right? And it actually varies a lot based on these factors or parameters which I have listed. The first one is the timeline and duration, which is the most important part of the take-home case studies, right? There
Are you
are
able to,
assignments
sorry,
which
are you able to make it bigger a little bit?
uh oh, thanks a lot for calling that out.
There we go. Thank
Cool.
you so much.
Yep. As I was perfect. Yep. As I was saying, right, the way you approach a take-home case study might vary on a lot of different conditions and factors, and these are few of them. The first is the timeline and the duration aspects. Right, there are take-home case studies for which you are literally given 1 or 2 working days, and even I've seen give, given 3 to 4 hours for completing those kind of take home case studies. As well as there are case studies where you can almost take around 2 weeks of time. So that actually changes a lot of thing of approaching those kind of take home case studies, right? The second is, one of the factors are the type of problem, right? Now, what are the kind of questions can be given in a take-home case studies? First is the product tier down. Generally, you are being asked to choose your favorite app and ways of improving it, or you can choose any of the public-facing app and do a complete end-to-end product tier down. Other type of questions can be the guesstimate questions, right? You are given a question that, hey, find the number of people currently online in US or India. So that kind of questions. Third is very company specific problem, right? Let's say you're working in some of the companies and they have some issues with the order fulfillment or return orders, right? How do you fix those kind of problems? And the other type of problems are metrics or analytics driven, where you are given actually the data sets, and as a PM you are asked to get some interesting insights and problems out of all those things. So in short, these are some type of problems which are given, right? Next very interesting thing is your mode of submission, right? Now there are case studies which is actually kind of a submission only. It means that you won't be having an interview or a discussion. You just submit your case study, and at the end, you want to get a result if you're moving ahead or not. And other type of is where you have an interview, upcoming interview, based on the case study which you are preparing, right? And that might vary a lot. How, what kind of content you should be writing, what kind of things you should be putting in picture, that depends a lot. Then other definitely few of the things are shortlisting, right? If this case study is the kind of an eliminational for you or is more of a discussion sort of things, that might change the approach you are approaching the case study. And the last is the type of product. Is it a B2C type of product which you would be working on that case study, or more of a B2B or a B2, B2C? So based on these factors, the way you approach a case study might completely changed a lot. Nancy, I want to take a quick pause and to see if there are any thoughts that you would like to add to this.
I don't have any thoughts yet, but I'm dying to know more.
Perfect. Uh, Now I do have couple of examples which I want to show, and these are kind of examples which I have personally received from the companies and have submitted those kind of case studies, right? So the first case study which I'm gonna present is uh, a case study on WhatsApp, which I did almost 3 years back, right? So this is the sorry, yeah, this is a case study which I was given almost 3 years back, and I was interviewing for a startup. And it was a normal, right? Hey, feedback, analysis, recommendation on features. Think of how you best delight the users. If you have technical designs, UI designs, feel free to send it. This case study was for upcoming interview, which means that the I have a round after submitting the case study where this case study gonna be discussed. So that's the reason few of the elements which I present, uh, might not have all the details, because I knew that I have the time to discuss it in the upcoming calls, right? So that's how I started the approaching the case study. Whenever you are given this question, right, the first thing is, hey, I have a lot of clarifying things which I want to clarify, or ambiguous terms. I don't have a lot of data. Should I reach to the companies on asking some of the clarifying questions? Generally, when we are in a live interview, we can ask those kind of clarifying questions to the interviewer. But in this kind of case studies, there is no such way. So the best bet is always make your assumptions and um, you know uh, take all your assumptions as far as much as possible. So that's what I did, right? I just started with some of the WhatsApp mission and what is WhatsApp, because yeah, moving on, I just wrote that the assumption here is that, hey, WhatsApp is a very wide term. There are a lot of different things about type of WhatsApp apps, right? Messenger, WhatsApp business, WhatsApp desktop. So I made that assumption that, hey, I'm going to be focusing on the messenger app and not the business part of it. So that was one of the assumptions I made. And once I did that, I wanted to understand, what is the objective or goal of this improvement, right? Why I want to do it. I might have just wrote a line over here, but when I was presenting it to the interviews, I actually explained, how this aligned with the missions of Meta and WhatsApp together, and what's the scope of all those things. And yeah, I think moving on to quickly showing some of the things. Then I did a bunch of research on the landscape of the messaging, taking what are the different type of apps lies, did a small rough competitive analysis. So this is part of all the research, right? And research can be on two types. First is secondary research, and the second is primary research. Secondary research is where you get the data available from the internet, and primary research is you actually talk to the users and get interviews and get that insights, right?
Sorry,
So
quick
yeah,
question.
that,
Can you remind us what the prompt was? Was it to improve WhatsApp?
that's correct. Yes, the prompt was to just do the feedback analysis and recommendation on features, and think of how to delight the users, and yeah, just that kind of prompt.
Okay, got it. And what is your thought process in doing a competitive analysis to answer this question?
Yeah, so one of the thought process was I wanted to understand what WhatsApp was doing at that point of time versus, or what are the features and things WhatsApp didn't have, which the users were going to the different kind of applications, right? Be it Telegram or WeChat. So what they are doing good versus what they are not doing good, and that was the overall thought process of
Okay,
doing
okay.
understanding.
Got it. All right.
Cool. And I think after that, right, one of the most important part is the users, right? At the end, uh, for improving any product, we have to identify the users, what are their pain points, and then solve it, and that get eventually results in awesome features and suggestions, right? So that was my thought process and approach. I thought of doing the same. I started listing out to the different type of user personas. Now, one thing which I really wanted to call out over here was that in this kind of take home assignments, right, we generally don't have the time to interview users. But even if you have just 2 to 3 working days, make sure you at least talk to your friends and family and try doing a rough 10 to 15 minutes uh, user interview sort of thing, because that gonna change your problem thinking, problem definition, pain points and solutions a lot, right? And that's what I did. I was just given 2 to 3 days of time for this particular case study. All I did that I reached out to my parents, my family, friends, and I just had a very rough conversation, brief conversation about them, that hey, why do you use WhatsApp, and what are the pain points you are facing as of now? And that was the kind of thing I did, right? And that actually impacted a lot in me defining those problems and solutions. uh, and then I listed out all the kind of pain points which I was able to figure, right? One mistake which I did here was, generally, right, in product management and in case studies, we can't solve problem for all type of users, right? We also have to prioritize which user segment we have to prioritize and would make more sense. I didn't actually prioritize any user segment, and I listed all their user pain points. It was called out when I was presenting to the interviewers in the
Mm.
interview, and I just accepted that hey, I made this mistake and I moved on. So yeah, whenever you are also approaching this kind of case study, make sure you prioritize which particular user segment you want to target and solve their pain points.
Got it. So this is an example of a live presentation type of take home assignment. It's not one that you just submitted, right?
Absolutely, that's
Mm.
correct. Yeah. So once I listed the pain points and all, I think I started adding some of the solutions that based on those pain points. These are few of the solutions I would say that, hey, adding chat recommendations. I'm not going into much details right now, but just wanted to show some of the solutions which I came across. And this is like a separate tab for group chats, right? This was one of the problem where our entire chats were flooded by group messages and all, and there is no way of segregating the group and the personal messages. And although WhatsApp came up with that community feature, and we have a separate tabs right now managing the communities and personal chat, this was somewhere similar sort of things what you see over here right now. uh, One of the other problems was seeking permission to add to the group. Like in WhatsApp, any people can add any numbers, right? So is there any way so that users can seek permission before they add to the group? That was one of the feature solutions which I suggested. Screen sharing option, which was another pain point generally faced by the elder citizens. And WhatsApp actually rolled out this feature a few months back, right? And that's what I was trying to say, right? When I look at that case study 3 years after now, it's good to see so many of these suggestions are actually live on WhatsApp. And this was only possible because I spoke to those users and customers and listed out their pain point, right? And yeah, and then we have the voting and the poll option. So you see, we already have this feature as well again, which was not 3 years back time. So at the end, after listing out the features, it's about the prioritizing. So I followed this RISE framework, where suggesting that how would I pick out the best solutions. There are a lot of prioritization techniques, but I picked up one of this as to go ahead with. And at the end, once you even pick out the solutions, you also have to call out what can be some of the risk and challenges associated with that. And followed by what are some of the key metrics you should be tracking for the success of that particular things. And
Swati has a
yeah, and that's
question.
how. Sure.
Weren't the personas signifying your potential user groups?
Okay.
I
Can you
actually
please
don't
repeat
really
that again, Nancy?
yeah, I actually don't really understand this question. Weren't the personas signifying your potential user groups? I would say yes. But I think this might be in response to what you were saying earlier, for not prioritizing a specific user persona. I would guess that this is
Maybe.
related to that.
Yeah, maybe.
If you had to do it again, what
Yep.
would you change about this assignment?
Uh, that's a really great question, Nancy. I think one approach is definitely I gonna change the way I gonna so and even given on the time, if I have ample amount of time, first of all, I want to reach out to more target audience, because here I was just able to speak to 3 to 5 people, right? Maybe if given an ample amount of time, I gonna love to speak 10 to 15 people and get those problem definition more validated. That that's number one. And number two is definitely pick up one of the user segment and then deep dive into them instead of not prioritizing any of them and going for all of it.
I have an idea. So if I were
Yeah,
to approach this particular question, I would also do, and maybe you already covered this in some of this earlier slides, is to understand what are some of the strategic company initiatives that the parent company,
absolutely.
Meta, is thinking about. And I don't know enough about WhatsApp, but I would probably look into whether they want to expand to new countries as a way to grow the business. But this is assuming that international expansion could be a company strategy. I don't know, but let's
Yep,
just make it up and assume that it is. That would be an area that I would look into, which would then help me narrow down the ideas that I might have, which would not be related to the user interviews. So that would just give you another perspective on another area to just think about in these preps.
Absolutely. And thanks a lot, Nancy, for adding that particular thing.
Yeah. Okay. You have, I think you have another example.
Yes. Now, this example is pretty interesting, folks, because this last one which I showed was given by a startup, but even enterprises like Microsoft also give assignments and all. So this is gonna be pretty interesting because when I was interviewing for Microsoft, I got this assignment as a again take-home case study, and let's look into this and what
Yeah.
this particular application was kind of a B2B sort of things. So the user interviews, the research, and the questions were completely different. Let's dive into that. Uh,
There we
can
go.
you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so folks, take a look. Maybe you can spend 30 seconds to read into the prompt or the problem statement which I was given.
Were you interviewing for Microsoft Teams?
That's correct.
Oh.
So I hope you have read the question. And just to summarize or repeat this, I was interviewing for Microsoft Teams, and the team was the App Store or the store team, right? Just like we have a store in everywhere like Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all, they also have an App Store for which they wanted to understand how they define the quality of apps and which are getting published into the Microsoft Teams and are used by the end users, right? It's mostly kind of a B2B2C or B2B kind of related things. So the question was, hey, simply define those quality of criterias, and what does a high quality app look like versus a low quality app look like. What are the some of the examples, and how would you identify that? So that was a straight away questions which were given to us. And sometimes, as said about the product tear downs and all, you just have to approach and answer to them whatever being asked here, right? And and again, I was just given 3 working days for this kind of assignment, and I had literally no idea what does this even mean. And 1 or 2 days I just had to spend completely on reading their entire documentation, which was the best part of it, that they had a very good documentation explaining the end-to-end things, and I had to do that. So the first step was understanding, right? What does the app over here mean, right? What are the different type of apps which can exist in a Teams, Microsoft Teams? And this is what I came across. And again, this was all presented in one of their source document and slides, and that's what was there, right?
Was the
Now,
source
my next phase was
provided? Sorry, was the source given to you or you had to Google it?
no, I have to Google it.
Hmm.
So that was not that difficult, but yeah, you are not given anything. You're just given with this prompt and go ahead and do whatever you can. Cool. So yeah, once I listed that, my here the thought process was understanding, reading a lot of things and understanding how does this app development works for the Microsoft Team apps, and see what are the areas of opportunities where I can improve the quality or define the quality sort of things. So that was the next slide which I presented of, hey, what is the journey of an app for us, especially a Microsoft Teams, and how does that look like, and how does that quality is being defined? So if you see the bottom line, one of the most important thing was related to the testing or the validations which happens, right? And I wanted to dig deeper into that test cases or the how those apps are being tested to verify the quality, right? Now I also want to talk about understand the users for this, right? Who are the different sort of users over here? Uh, we have an end user like the employees of the company who might be using Teams app, Teams chat to work or chat. We have the IT admins who actually manage your Teams account in a company. And then we have the app developers who create this kind of apps for the teams, right? So those were the kind of user personas we had. As mentioned, in this particular case, I didn't had a chance to do any sort of user interviews or so because I didn't know them or there was no way of reaching them out. So that was the thing, right? Then I straight away jumped into understanding or defining those quality of apps, criteria for the quality apps. And this is where I came after reading bunch of documentations. I came up with, hey, based on this criterias like security, privacy, compliance, user experience, support, and certification, this is how you come up or define those quality of the apps. And uh, and at the end I started with the few examples of high quality app. So I figured out that, hey, we have Miro in a Teams chat, and these are some of the ways why Miro is a high quality app. I tried highlighting it and putting all those numberings that, hey, because of so and so reason, because Miro is showcasing those attributes, I think this is a high quality app for the kind of example they asked me, right? And then I also yeah, any question, Nancy?
Is Microsoft Teams App Store publicly accessible, or you had to
Uh,
Google these images?
so I was having a Teams app, right? In the company I was working at that point of time, and that
Oh, okay,
actually
I
helped.
see. What if I work in a company that does not use Microsoft Teams and I don't know how to even look at it?
Interesting question. I think we can still use download Microsoft Teams, right? And I'm
Mm,
making that assumptions. Maybe
I
then we
see.
would be accessible to this kind of apps.
Got it, got it, got it.
Yep. Yeah, and this were the kind of example of high quality app and low quality app. This was the kind of application I had when the apps are not responsive, not able to answer some of the questions. It is asking unnecessary questions about, asking users phone number and addresses and all. And this are some of the screenshots I shared on the low quality app. And then now I tried answering that, hey, how can I improve recommendation to improve the quality of the app, right? Now we can try to address it in two approaches, proactive or reactive, right? Proactive is when while building the app, you are ensuring you are building quality apps. And reactive is, okay, that app is now published to the Play Store. How can we actually make sure that uh, you know we take proper measures to identify those apps and take it down, and those are the kind of stages, and I tried breaking down that problem of doing that. And at the end, I tried coming up with a couple of solutions and all. One of them was like, hey, maybe we can come up with this extension of while typing a code, we are just putting the suggestions so that we create quality apps, right? And there are a lot of other solutions where we can restrict the app while it's getting uploaded into the org for validating and so on, right? And yeah, and here I again didn't went ahead and prioritize any all of these things because that attempt was not relevant, and because the major focus was in those criterias of qualities and some examples of it, and that's how I presented this. And luckily I was not only shortlisted, but I had two rounds of discussion based on this kind of case studies. So the interviewers were pretty satisfied with the solution I presented to them.
That's great. So was this a submission type of assignment, or you had to give this presentation live?
It was a submission. After
Oh,
submission, they liked that, and then for further interviews as well was
got it.
aligned with this.
Do you think that for a submission type of format, we could also consider writing a doc versus building a deck. What do you think the pros and cons are, and how would you approach it?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking this. I had this topic in mind while talking that. So I was talking to one of the Amazon PMs who cracked the Amazon interview, and the kind of assignment they got was a submission only assignment, and
Mm,
the kind of question was, we all might have heard about Amazon's leadership principles, right? And the question or the case study was on two situational based questions that, hey,
mm,
tell me a time you were a customer champion. And you literally had to write it down with your examples and all that was used as a submission, right? So
mhm,
Amazon typically does that. So
mm,
if you're interviewing for Amazon, they're gonna ask you this take home assignments on behavioral situations where you have to present a doc and
mm,
kind of it. So that was one example I had for the submission only.
mm,
Another example is I was doing a interview for Vice, TransferWise, and they had pretty much question related to metrics and analytics driven, where they have given me a data set and they wanted me to deep dive, analyze, find insights, problems. So that was the thing. I had to do bunch of Excel thing and then
mm.
write all those analysis into the Word document and share my thought process. Pros and cons for this kind of submission is, sometimes it's very that you can present in a detailed way the end-to-end thought process what you had, right? Whereas the con is sometimes you might not be able to relay the exact information what was in your mind. So I've
Mm,
seen people struggling, uh, portraying their thought process in writing as well as presenting. So
right.
so that are the two scenarios I've seen for this kind of submission only case studies.
Well, are you saying that we should include our thought process or we shouldn't?
You should include your thought process, but
Mm,
sometimes the candidates are unable to translate into the story which they want to present, and that's where
mm,
they struggle. And
mhm,
the reader would love to see your entire end to end, the picture, the story, like, hey, define the problem, how did you
mm,
thought about it. So
mhm,
while you're presenting,
mm,
you can talk that, hey, I thought that this was the problem because of so and so reason, right? But
mhm.
while writing it down, that story or the analogy might be missed somewhere.
Yeah, super interesting. I've not had the experience where I had to submit an assignment. So this is also new learnings for me. Thank you for sharing. All right, we also have some
Yeah,
questions that came in from people who signed up for this event. So let's take a look at these questions. How do you approach take-home assignments
cool.
with lack of data? We touched on this. Is there anything else that you could add?
Literally not. I think most of the take-home assignments are without data. They will, and you are not even asked to ask all these follow-up questions. So do your research and make your assumptions. Those are the big things I want to talk about it. Feel free to include all the references and why did you make that a reason for your assumptions should be most important things here.
I will also call out that the take-home assignment is a different spin on the product sense interview. The difference is you have more time to prepare, and you could look up data points. But it's also understandable that we wouldn't have all the information we need. But that is the interview. That is the purpose of the interview. The purpose
Yep.
is to test our product sense. And what is product sense? It's a sense on how we could build a product and how to build it well, right? It's a sense. And what does the word sense mean? Like common sense, spider sense.
Yeah.
It's just like a feeling. But people with product sense generally are very good at making good decisions when there's no data points
Mm.
because they have a good sense. So that is what product sense means. And that is the purpose of these interviews. So we have to be comfortable operating in this ambiguity, we have to be comfortable making decisions based on insights, not based on data, because we don't have data.
Yep.
We have to be comfortable making decisions based on insights, because that is how we demonstrate that we have product sense. If we have all the data, then we don't need good product sense to make good product decisions, because there is not a lot of unknowns, right? So that is the purpose of these interviews.
Yep.
All right,
Truly agree.
second question. What is the recommended amount of time to spend and the level of detail expected on the assignment?
Cool. I think we have touched this a very bit, but again, I would like to repeat it for the wider audience that it all depends on the deadline or the duration which you're given, right? Sometimes 2 working days is not enough. So try to split your time in 50-50. 50% of the time should be always given to the research. Read a lot, understand, use the app, try to come up with your own analyze insights, right? So spend 50% of time in uh, doing the research part of it, and the next 50% is uh, you know convey that into the form of presentation or wireframes, diagrams, whatever you might have. If you do the first 50% correct, you will see the remaining 50% to be very easily come. So that's my take on the time amount of time which you are given. Be it 2 working days versus 1 week of time. That's how you might approach, and it's my recommendation. Level of details expected on assignment is it's gonna be directly mentioned into the question itself, right? The Microsoft case study which I present, right? I was didn't go into much deeper inside after the solutioning and what was their prioritization, risk, and that kind of thing, because that was not us. So stick to the question that is being asked. On the other side, when it was a end-to-end end-to-end question, open-ended questions, I ensure that I give them a structure and present them in a right way. What was the problem? How did I define the problem, and how did I solve it? In number of terms of slides, I won't say 10 to 15 slides would be more than enough. Make sure that you don't go beyond 20-25 slides in presenting this kind of things. If you have anything, you can add that as a reference slides for all the lot of data points. But maybe Nancy, if you want to add anything to this.
I would add, in terms of amount of time to spend, it's different for everyone. So for me, I need to spend a lot of time else I feel uncomfortable, just because
Yep.
that's how I am wired. So I would postpone everything else and treat this as my top priority for the week or for the 3 working days or whatever, if I really want this job, right? Then I would put in all my time, but I'm doing it for myself because that is how I could feel comfortable. If I don't feel comfortable, I'm not going to be able to do a good job on the actual execution of this assignment. So you have to do what it takes that makes sense for you, is what I would say. And then level of detail expected on the assignment. The assignment, again, is not on how accurate your proposal is. The interview is on the thought process
True.
and highlighting, again, your product sense on how you go about making product decisions. Knowing that, I would put more detail into these are the reasons why I'm making these decisions. I'm justifying my decision every
Mm,
step of the way.
yep.
That's where I would put the details, not really in the solutioning, because solutioning
Absolutely.
is not the focus of this interview. And then I would
Well,
also spend time on the actual craft of the deliverable, whether it's a document or it's a presentation. The craft of the presentation is
mm,
I need my presentation to look good and
Yep.
um, with high quality. So I pay attention. I pay a lot of attention to the formatting of the slides. There's not a lot of text um,
Yep.
anywhere, and I make sure that the visuals make sense because that is part of the craft. I need this output to be an extension of me. So it needs to represent me, how I think, and how I deliver. So that is how I would answer this question. Hope that was helpful.
Yep.
Alrighty, next question. Tips to stand out.
Okay. I think one of the most important tip, what I spoke, that do user interviews. Even if the time does not permit, at least talk to your few of people, read some of the feedback reviews. You will get a bunch of insights. That's number one. Number two, when you're done with the presentation or your case study, please send it out to a couple of your friends and get it reviewed. That's the at least one thing you can do to get some of the early feedbacks before submission. I did the same. I always used to do the same. Whenever I'm about to submit a case study or presentation, I send it to a couple of my friends and get it reviewed, see the feedback, because what they are able to get out of this submission would be the similar what interviewer is also trying to understand. So that's number two. Nancy already covered the top three is your on the presentation aspects. How can you keep the slides very minimalistic, with right set of informations, uh, with all set of good formatting, the visuals that you're using should stand out, and that collectively gonna uh, you know stand out of your case study submissions.
Let's answer some of the questions that are coming in live. All
Okay,
right.
sure.
New to PM interview. What if I haven't used the app for which we have to do analysis and comparisons, etc.?
Yes, I was mentoring one of the folks last month, and the kind of case study assignment was related to a CRM, right? And generally, not all people are used of using the CRM. So I still encourage the candidate that even if you have to use any of the free CRM like HubSpot, go ahead and use this, because that gonna change. You're gonna first learn about how the CRM works, understand how that the working happens, and you get a lot of good insights. Even if you haven't used the app, just do it. And that's the only way I would recommend. And the candidate, after using that, he was actually shortlisted and went to the next rounds, because he just had to use the CRM for a few days, and his thought process changed after using that.
Cannot agree more. If you haven't used it, try to use the product. But if it's a B2B product, then find an alternative, the free version. All right.
Just to add one last thing,
Mm.
uh, so I was interviewing for a very early stage startup for which the app was not even released, and they gave me an assignment to evaluate the app. I humbly asked them that, hey, I couldn't find the app store. Can you give me the private beta of the app? And they did set up my account and send the app to me my way. So you have to go into that extent to ensure that
Mhm.
you have to use the app before interviewing. Or yeah,
Part of the evaluation also depends on the company. Is some companies value a very scrappy attitude, um, especially at startups or at bigger companies that move really fast. They would look for this scrappy attitude. So do what you need to do to understand the problem so that you can come up with solutions.
yep.
And sometimes what you have to do is very scrappy. And that's what these companies look for. Not all of the companies, but some companies do look for these scrappy way of getting things done.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the next question. There's two. How can we implement chat GPTs for these take home cases?
Okay, so I personally haven't used the chat GPT because of so I haven't actually used chat GPT, but I've been using chat GPT for some other things. What you can do probably is try to get some sort of summarizing capabilities that you might have for at the end when you've done all your analysis. You can just upload your PPT any or Word document in any of the format and just say that, hey, what should be the final recommendation and how do you present that? That's one use case I can think of now. uh, Other thing can be putting a structure to the case study. So whenever you give the prompt to the chat GPT, that hey, this is the problem I want to send, maybe the chat GPT can give you a good structure of what all things you should put as the part of the analysis. And sometimes chat GPT might give you all bunch of set of analysis and solution itself. Please take that with all sort of precautions, because that may not be accurate. You should always do your validations and change any of the results that might happen.
I completely agree.
Nancy.
And also, hiring manager can also use ChatGPT. All right,
Yes.
anyone, every other candidate can also use ChatGPT, right? And that's where you want to one get really good at prompting, so that
Yes.
ChatGPT actually gives you the right response or the response with high quality, right? So the art is in the prompt. Um, and then you want to discern the output from ChatGPT, and you want to really think about what you want the solution, the answer to be, right? So everyone will leverage ChatGPT, and the art is in how you leverage it. That's what I would say. Second question: have the problem statements changed due to the entry of GAI? I don't know.
I don't think so. Yeah, or maybe I haven't seen much of the things, because I still see the problems which are being given. Sometimes it's very company specific what they are facing. So some companies do tend to stick to that particular framing or the kind of case study they give.
I do think these questions will slowly evolve, though. I just don't know how it would look, but I do believe it will evolve. It's just a matter of time. All right, so we have another question from the live audience that is, I'm assuming this is related to take home assignments, or it could just be more broad. What do you think?
How is strategy and product related? Yeah, I'm even finding it difficult to understand the question.
Well, I'm going to assume and guess that in a take home assignment type of context, the product is mm, like, what does a product do? Right? That's the product. The strategy is how you make your decisions. So the prompt is always going to be how can you improve this or come up with new ideas for that, etc.
Yes,
The the what is the product, but the why and the how, that's the strategy.
cool. I think I might have an answer to this. So, okay, I was doing a evaluation of Cred app, which is an app based out of India for making credit card payments, which was almost, I did this 3 years back. And I did some research and user interviews, and I got some set of data, right? Now, the data told that, hey, there is a problem in the adoption of the app where much of the people are not aware of the app. And the other part was the retention, where there was a problem in the retention as well, where users were not happy with the experience of the app. Now, the data says that the adoption problem is huge, is the data which we received in adoption is way more than the retention, the number of people who complained about the retention, right? So now, if I have to solve the problem here, I gonna definitely look into the data part of it. That hey, my data be a PM, take the data driven decisions, and go with the adoption of the users. And that's where the strategy come into picture, where you also have to think what's the company's goal and the objective. Uh, Eventually, on reading much about that, I realized the company's objective was not adoption, because they were only they had a entry to barrier, and they want to focus on the retention. So that's
Mm.
where I thought that, you know uh, even the data driven decisions, but the company's strategy is something different, then I should stick with the company's objective, even if my data is something else. And that's what made my decision of further going into solving the retention problem. I hope, I'm not sure if that was the question or the intent of the answer, but maybe that's how, yeah, I thought of answering this.
Yeah, I love that example. Um, Data points could be short term, it could be long term. But company strategy, is a focus area, whether it's a long term strategy or a
Yes.
short term strategy, right? So the challenge with making data driven decisions is first, you have to discern what this data is before you could make a decision based on that data point. Long term data is very different from short term data, right? So, first, yes, gather data, but then you definitely want to look at it from the company's perspective. So, completely agree with that example. All right, so let's wrap up. Um, Sugat has been mentoring a lot of people on PM interview prep. So, tell us more about the different mentoring services that you offer.
Yeah, I think, and this eventually got started a few years back after the YouTube channel, which actually people started reaching me out and saying that, hey, if I can help them in cracking the PM interview. So that's when I started that, hey, it would be a good opportunity for me as well to be part of that interview loops and see how the market has been evolving. And that's how I've been helping candidates in cracking the PM interview, be it with your resume reviews, mock interviews, or any sort of interview prep that you want to have.
What are some of the most frequently advice that you have given in these mentoring sessions?
Uh, Generally, right, the kind of thing which I've seen that people with struggle, or the candidates struggle with, how should I answer this kind of questions in a limited set of time? How should I ideate in front of the interviewers, right? How should I do customer segmentation of the apps which I have never used altogether, right? Or how should I approach this? How should I prepare a good story on the behavioral questions? So those are the angles I help candidates. It's coming together with this. And another important aspects is getting shortlisted, right? That's the most important pain I have seen from the candidates, saying that, hey, I've been applying to ton companies, but I'm not hearing back. How can I solve that problem? Right? Is the problem with my resume? Is the problem with the LinkedIn profile or my approach of it? So that's what I tend to help people, that
Mhm.
how can I help them land into some of the interviews at the first place, and then help them crack those interviews.
That's amazing. So make sure you scan the QR code, and that is how you can work with Sugat. And he has a lot of experience working with a lot of mentees, so definitely scan the QR code and learn more. All right. Thank you so much for coming onto my live stream, Suga. I'm so happy that we were able to finally connect because I know we've been planning for this
Yep.
event for a while. Super happy that it finally happened. And thank you for taking the time to account for like commute issues from office, etc. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Nancy. And yeah,
See you
thank you
again.
for me hosting me. Bye.
All right. Until next time. Bye.